really interesting and thought-provoking, and give you a chance to really have an intelligent exploration of one of the most important topics of our generation, and that is the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan, the reason that the media works so hard to censor men like Farrakhan. And so in order to really understand this topic much further, I actually I have the pleasure of greeting Brother Demetric Muhammad, who is a student minister, and he's part of the research team with the Nation of Islam. And he's also a columnist with The Final Call, and he's the author of the book Manhood Principles from the Holy Quran. I want to ask my brother, how you doing today, man?
Dr. Boyce, I'm wonderful.
Good, brother. I'm glad. I'm so glad to have you, and I'm so glad that you're participating in this conversation. This is going to be good for everybody in terms of really hearing the important narratives, the narratives that the media doesn't want us to hear. And so let's just start from the beginning, brother. You know, it's been, I guess, I don't know if it's been a week since they told the minister that he was not welcome on Facebook. What's been the talk among the brothers in the nation in terms of you know, what happened and why it was wrong and things like that?
Well, you know, Dr. Boyce, once again, let me just thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to be with you, brother. I saw the piece that you did, and I was cheering as I watched it on my screen, and just want to thank good brothers and strong brothers like yourself for being in what we consider the larger Nation of Islam, which we consider all of our people. You know, we consider all of our people to be members of the nation, whether you are at the mosque or not. We consider all of our people to be Muslims. That's our nature. Muslim only means to be a righteous person. And so we definitely consider you to be a righteous brother. And we just thank you for your courage and your candor with addressing this issue. You know, in the nation, we have dealt with these kinds of issues for many years. So much of it was expected, going all the way back to 1984, when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan came to the defense of Reverend Jesse Jackson, which in the modern iteration of the Jewish controversy is how so much of this began. A Muslim minister coming to the defense of his Christian brother when he was being attacked because Black people had chosen him to be their candidate for the office of the President of the United States. But it was back then with the U.S. Senate, they issued a official censure of the minister in a 95-0 vote. And from that point on, the message of the minister has been considered dangerous. The message of the minister has been feared, and the message of the minister getting to the masses of our people has been interfered with. And so inside the nation, we have certainly had mixed feelings with respect to this controversy, because inasmuch as there was some expectation that such a move would be made, the minister had over 1 million Facebook followers. He had over 600,000 Instagram followers. So to look at 1.6 million people no longer having the ease of access to access the minister via these powerful social media platforms, it certainly makes us angry. But being spiritual men and women, we understand that nothing happens except by the permission of Almighty God Allah. And so we believe that this is setting the stage for even more millions to discover the minister and learn of the minister. And there are early indications that this is already happening. And so we understand that, you know, even though the enemies of the rise of Black people, because I maintain, Dr. Boyce, that there is no such thing as those who are adversaries and enemies of Minister Farrakhan, who on the other side of the page love the Black community. I maintain that the enemies of Minister Farrakhan are the enemies of the Black community, because the minister has been the strongest, the most significant, the most impactful, the most progressive black leader in the last 40 years. So there's no such thing as those who come against him that are simultaneously for all of the rest of us. And so we believe that God is going to bless the minister, and we believe God is going to bless our people to have the opportunity to hear the minister and to have a much more eager appetite to hear the minister based upon this controversy.
All right, everybody who just came in, if you just came in, please hit the thumbs up button. Everybody make sure you hit the thumbs up and share this video. We're talking about the truth about Minister Farrakhan and the whole situation with Facebook and all the other controversies that have happened recently. And I'm speaking with Brother Demetric Muhammad, who's a student minister and part of the research team with the Nation of Islam. So, you know, I agree with you, brother. I think, you know, when you talk about the enemies of black folks, the list is long. The list is very long. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier, and I'd like to, you know, get your take on this, you know, what would you say is the sentiment amongst your peers in terms of all the people? There have been so many people over the decades of black folks, prominent black folks, politicians, celebrities, etc., that have been supported by both Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, protected by the Nation of Islam. And many of those individuals, it seems based on what I'm seeing, that they haven't really stepped out there in support of the minister during this time. We saw Snoop Dogg did what he did and said what he said, and then I think there were a couple others, but I didn't see many out there. What is your feeling about that? I mean, how do you sort of process that?
Well, Dr. Boyce, you're absolutely right. And we have written about this phenomenon in our book, Who Do They Say I Am? That includes a beautiful essay from yourself, where we actually catalog the very candid and on the record testimonies of the beneficial impact of the minister on some of the most prominent and influential people in America and around the world. The challenge, as you accurately point out, my brother, is that you know, theology professor Andre C. Willis said this about the minister. He said that there is simply no other person, no other human being who has been as consistent in the defense of black people, black humanity, and our innate goodness other than Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in spite of the minister defending all of those who, when they get into trouble and their reputations are about to be destroyed in white America in the mainstream media, the minister always comes to their aid and begins to refocus the attention away from our brother and sister who may be in peril to the hidden hand of the enemy who has created the circumstances and situations that have ensnared them. We find most of these prominent brothers and sisters are afraid to publicly come to the aid and the defense of the minister. And that's what made what Snoop Dogg did so impactful and so important, in my opinion. And you could see some of the Jewish websites, blogs, and news organs react to the fact that here is a prominent, quote unquote, mainstream entertainer with 31 million followers. And he encouraged those 31 million followers to retweet, repost, and to share messages from Minister Farrakhan. So they are angry at that. Again, as a spiritual person, Dr. Boyce, I'm reminded of the book of John in chapter 7 and verse 13. And you read in John 7 and 13 where it says that the people were afraid to speak positively about Jesus because they feared the Jewish leaders. Now, this is written of about 2,000 years ago, but I don't think it's a coincidence that we see these same episodes and incidents showing up in the life of Minister Farrakhan. In the early 20th century, many who looked at the liberation efforts of a brother like he was a doctor, but the great and honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, they referred to him as a black Moses. Well, in scriptural language, Moses was the ancestor of Jesus. So if Black America could produce leadership that was styled and modeled off of that liberation ethic of Moses, I think what we're witnessing in the life of Minister Farrakhan is that kind of Jesus style of leadership, a man that is like a suffering servant, a man who is a man of love. I have described him in some of my writings as being both lion and lamb, because we see him, Dr. Boyce, and you can bear witness. When we see him at the podium, he's speaking truth to power, and no one does it better. But behind the scenes, he's the sweetest and gentlest man that you have ever met. He'll melt your heart. And so this unique combination of attributes and characteristics is very profound. And so I'm happy to see what Snoop did, a few others did, but I'm in agreement with you, Dr. Boyce. I would love to see more of the prominent men and women, more of the brothers and sisters who have a big name in the mainstream media, just simply say, Minister Farrakhan is a good man. Minister Farrakhan deserves our respect. And if you disagree with Minister Farrakhan, the minister himself has called for a public showdown. He's called for a public airing of the facts and information that he's standing on as his foundation for his arguments against the Jewish community. He and we have never shied away from sitting down to discuss publicly what our issues are, because to continue to falsely label the minister and what he says as hate, when, mind you, hate speech is primarily a problem because it produces hate acts or hate crimes. And yet in the more than 80-year history of the Nation of Islam, Dr. Boyce, as powerful and as potent as our message has been from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, from Malcolm X, now the minister, you don't find the Muslims or any of those in the larger Nation of Islam in the Black community who can say that they were inspired to commit crimes as a result of hearing the message of the Nation of Islam. Instead, you have those who are inspired to fight crime, to fight drug use, to fight ignorance, to fight poverty after they hear the message of the Nation of Islam.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I'll tell you what, brother. I'm speaking with Brother Demetric Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, by the way, in case you just tuned in. You know, one thing I think, brother, is that, you know, when you have, you know, one side of the conversation saying something about someone else, and the person who's being accused opens that door, and they say, look, let's have a debate. You know, let's get together and let's just debate it out. And every time there is an opportunity for a debate, the party that's making the accusation says, oh, no, we don't want to debate, or they don't say anything at all. You know, that right there is pretty suspect. You know, in fact, you know, I make no qualms about bringing up, you know, you and I talked separately about it, but you know, when a person, even on my own YouTube channel, a person I was friends with, Yvette Carnell from the ADOS movement, when she just did her hit piece on the minister, and really, and it wasn't like, it would have been one thing if it was, you know, here's what he said, I disagree, but here's what I think. That's fine. You know, you and I as friends will probably disagree on something. We're both thoughtful men, so we're not going to agree on everything. But that's fine. But it was like it was an attack piece. It was, you know, you are terrible. You are fraudulent. You are a bad person. You are a liar. You are misleading people, and you don't deserve leadership and things like that. You're seeking to destroy, dethrone, you know, deface, whatever you want to describe it. When somebody does something like that, you know, if you're fair, if you have any sense of justice about you, and you're authentic, you're not being fraudulent yourself, then you will allow for an open review of the evidence and the information that revolves around that particular issue, right? You'll have some due process, you know. So if I come to you and I say, Brother Demetric, you know, he committed this terrible crime and he's a terrible person and blah, 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 and people say, well, where's your proof, Boyce? Why don't you let Demetric defend himself? And I say, oh, I don't want to hear what he has to say. Well, that right there tells you that I'm probably telling a lie. So I remember, you know, when Yvette attacked the minister, first thing I called for, you know, a lot of people thought I should have just banned her from the channel, but I said, no, let's have a debate. And what I loved about it was what I heard from the brothers in the nation. I heard from a lot of them, believe me. They were always really respectful, and also the big thing was they said, hey, we want to just debate her. We just want to have a debate. We don't want to go at her, and we're not going to say terrible things about her, but we'd like to debate the facts and debate the issues. So I called her on the phone and I said, hey, you attack someone they really respect. Black men, we don't have a lot of strong black men that are public that we can look up to, so we got to protect the ones we got. So I said, they like to debate you. Why don't you come on the channel? We'll just have a debate, and you can lay out your point of view. You're respected as a woman to say what you got to say. And when I did that, she backed down. I think she was afraid. I think that she did not want to defend her point of view, and it's fascinating. So then I had a brother, brother Salim, I believe, from California.
Salih.
Salih. How do you spell that?
S-A-L-I-H.
I need to remember his name because that was one of the sharpest young men I've ever met in my life. And this brother came in, and he what was he, about 22, 23 years old?
Yes.
And he just lit it up. He lit it up. He defended his position well. He did it in a way that was, he did it in a man's way, in the sense that he didn't feel the need to attack anybody to make his point. He didn't say, Yvette's a bad person and she needs to go to blankety blank. He just defended his point of view and did a damn good job at it. And I will tell you this, I remember that she was very upset that he came in and said, well, you gave him a softball interview, you didn't push him a hammer. I said, well, I'll let you say what you had to say. He said what he had to say. If you can't go and do, and my point is that I'm getting at with this is, if you ain't ready to defend your stuff, then be quiet. Just be quiet, and because the white liberals are interested in that. The white liberals love to attack, oppress. Because bro, this was an attack. To me, this attack on the minister was more from the liberal side of the equation than the conservative side. I don't see, the conservatives now. Believe me, the conservatives, they have their own issues, but they're not the ones controlling these big tech companies that are deciding that certain voices represent hate speech, right? So this was an attack from the white liberal establishment, in my opinion, and who become very oppressive in terms of telling people, you can't talk, you need to be quiet. And what's fascinating is that when you challenge them with facts, when you challenge them with a debate, when you challenge them and come back at them with the same energy they came at you with, they'll either ignore it or they'll scream victims, like, oh, you're attacking me because I'm a woman or because I'm gay. No, ain't nobody attacking you. You came in there, you wanted a battle. Let's go. Let's make it happen. So what do you think about that? The individuals that and I'm circling back to the minister, because all these people out here that have all these things to say about Minister Farrakhan, terrible. He's this, he's that, he's that. Not one of them has ever been strong enough to sit here and debate with this man. And I believe it's out of fear. I believe that they know that the truth will set him free, and the truth will incarcerate them. It will expose their lies. And I believe that they know that they're not smart enough to sit at the same table with the minister. Can I get your take on that?
Dr. Boyce, you're absolutely right, my brother. And you reminded me of something that is in the famous COINTELPRO papers written by the FBI, because there's a section where J. Edgar Hoover, who looked at the landscape of Black leadership, and he understood that among suffering and oppressed people, he understood that at a certain point in time, one of the women from among the poor and the oppressed would give birth to a son, and that son would be a Messiah of that people. So Hoover put into his memorandums, we want to prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unite all of the disparate elements in the Black struggle. And when he came to Dr. King, he said that Dr. King could be the Messiah if he ever gives up his obedience or agreement with liberal white tutelage. And I have always believed that his historic meeting in 1966 with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the signal to J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI that King was moving away from liberal white tutelage. And so I believe that that meeting caused them to press the button that the time had come for them to remove Dr. King from the scene. So you're right, there are those in the so-called progressive movement, so-called white liberals, who are not really interested in the liberation of our people. And you hardly find those in the white liberal community really in support of legitimate, strong Black leadership. And so, as you pointed out, the minister and his research group, I might add, we stand, prepared to have an open dialogue, debate, discussion, whatever you want to call it, however you want to market it, with any of those on the opposing side of the message of the minister. Recently the book series, The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, was banned by Amazon. And it's always called anti-Semitic. Yet the basis of those books are thousands of quotes with footnotes and citations from Jewish scholars, historians, and rabbis. But you understand the misdirection, Dr. Boyce, is that when they apply the false label that these are texts of anti-Semitism, it causes the average person not to even want to open up the book to see if it's anti-Semitic or not. What's the basis of our argument, And so you have this kind of phenomenon where the minister in the Nation of Islam is falsely labeled. And as you accurately pointed out, when we say, well, let's have a public forum and allow us equal time, you have pejoratively dubbed us as being something that we are not. We refute that. Give us equal time to refute that before the same audience that you attacked us. Give us equal time. There's always silence. As they say, there's always crickets. Because really, this is an attack, not so much on the minister and the nation, but Dr. Boyce, this is an attack on truth. And I would dare say again, as a spiritual person, it's an attack even on the word of God. I delivered a message a few weeks ago in Atlanta called The Dangerous Word of God, Dr. Boyce. And one of the things that we looked at was the reaction to Nat Turner's rebellion. And I read a quote from a newspaper from the 1800s, the Richmond Enquirer, because it was fascinating to me, Dr. Boyce, that here was Nat Turner and a group of slaves who had went and got weapons, and they started killing slave masters and overseers and plantation owners, oppressors. But the reaction was not to the fact that slaves had gotten access to guns and knives and machetes, etc. The reaction was to what gave them the idea to do what they did. And so they surmised that it was the fact that they had read the Bible, that they had Nat Turner preaching to them from the Bible without any slave masters or overseers interpreting it for them. And so the Richmond Enquirer literally wrote in a newspaper, we must ensure that no Negro throughout the country become a preacher. Simultaneously, Henry Berry, who was a Virginia state legislator at that time, Dr. Boyce, he said, we have now closed every avenue by which light may enter the mind of the slave. He said that, and if we could, we would destroy their capacity to see the light, for then they would be on the level of the beasts of the field and we would be safe. And so you have this fascinating idea, Dr. Boyce, that if the Black community is overrun with savage acts of crime and violence, as long as it's contained in the Black community, those in the white ruling class, they feel safe. So here comes the minister in the nation who begins to preach things like literacy, spirituality, thrift, self-respect, family life, entrepreneurship, collective economics, cooperative economics. These things that we in the Black community would consider to be good and noble and benign even. Who would oppose us doing these things to help ourselves? Lo and behold, these are the most feared things. We have been deceived, Dr. Boyce, into thinking that they really fear the armed Black revolutionary who has a machine gun and guns and knives. That's not the element in the Black struggle that they really fear. Because guess what? Whatever guns or carnal weapons we are allowed to have, our oppressors have those that are bigger, stronger, and more powerful. They fear that we would unite and organize and we would achieve equality with them, and at a certain point overtake them. Currently, right now, in terms of demographics, Europe and white America is having a difficult time reproducing themselves. And many demographers have said, Dr. Boyce, that maybe by 2050, America will be predominantly a black or brown country. So now work is being done to promote, as you pointed out, certain lifestyles and certain things that interfere with what nature is doing and the God of nature is doing, which is organically causing our people to become predominant in this land where we once upon a time were held as slaves. So when they see the minister, they see the revolutionary potential of the word of God. They see in the Nation of Islam a seedling of what will ultimately engulf and become all of Black America. When the public saw what the believers did in Los Angeles to tribute Brother Nipsey Hussle, that video went viral. And many people who had a dim view of the nation or had no view of the nation at all, they was like, wow, that was amazing. We didn't even know that such a thing existed. And so this, in my opinion, just as a person that keeps up with this kind of thing, I believe that that was one of the things that caused Facebook and Instagram to say, you know what? We cannot afford to have Farrakhan to continue to be trending. We cannot afford to have Farrakhan and his message to become predominant among a people that we have targeted for genocide. See, you have to understand, Dr. Boyce, and I know you do, is that right now, popular culture is used to promote a lifestyle of savagery that justifies killing Black youth, incarcerating Black youth, and even robbing the Black electorate of its right to vote. So if a man and a movement comes to interfere with that process, even though, Dr. Boyce, they call the minister dangerous, yet it's forbidden for us to even carry so much as a penknife. The Nation of Islam, we carry no weapons, no guns, no knives. We're not allowed to even have them in our homes. Yet they call the minister dangerous. But what's really dangerous is that the minister and the nation are interfering with the plan of genocide for the Black community.
Everybody, I'm speaking with Brother Demetric Muhammad from the Nation of Islam. He is a student minister and part of the ministers' research team. Also, he is the author of the book Manhood Principles from the Quran. His Instagram is IG Brother Demetric, D-E-M-E-T-R-I-C. So look him up. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. Look up Demetric Muhammad on Facebook, YouTube. And the reason I'm telling you to look these things up is because you know, if we're following everybody that we love and supporting everybody that we love on all the different platforms and creating our own platforms, then it makes it that much more difficult for them to take us all out by just taking down one person. So everybody commit to me now that you're going to go and follow Brother Demetric somewhere on social media. And also, you guys know about this platform. I wrote it on a piece of paper so you can spell it. This was our word. We came up with it because we wanted people to be Black enough to be part of the platform. So Brother Demetric, what we did was we created our social media platform called Black Enough. That was me just being kind of silly, but I said, yeah, I want people that are Black enough. I need people to have a strong Black identity. So I just took out the CK and replaced it with 2 G's. And I said, are you Black enough? If you're Black enough, then join blackenough.com. That's our social media platform. That's the plan B. It's almost how when the earth starts to erode and the environmentalism, you know, the environmental issues start kicking in and the planet starts dying and we got to go to Mars. Well, Black folks are going to have to migrate when it comes to social media. We got to have a plan for when they really come in and put the hammer down hard. Because what's going to happen, Brother Demetric, I'd love to talk to you about this, is I believe that the federal government's going to put the hammer down on Facebook eventually. Facebook's got a lot more enemies besides us. We're just one group that has an issue with Facebook. There are many groups that have issues with Facebook. So I believe the federal government's eventually going to come down on Facebook. But then when they come down on them, they're going to come down on all of us, right? It's going to have a trickle down effect, and we're going to have to migrate, just like the Mormons did with Brigham Young when they left persecution to go find the Great Salt Lake, and now they built Salt Lake City into this multi-billion-dollar community. Well, we're going to have to migrate. I've told you all that the best way to deal with racist systems is to get out, not to make it work, not to figure it out, to get along. No, you get out. You get out. You get out. That means racist school system, get out. Take your kids out of that school. You hate your boss, hate your job, get out. You can start your own business. Find a way to work with other people. You gotta get out. Mainstream media isn't serving us. It's serving us poison. Get out. Don't get your mainstream media. Get your media from people like Brother Demetric and others. I'm out here every day sharing news. That we have Your Black World News. We have all different kinds of outlets and possibilities out here. So I want to speak on that. I ask you to talk on that, brother, as well. One of the things I've always appreciated about the nation, beyond the fact that as a black man, there aren't that many there aren't that many strong black male leaders out there. And I'm not just talking about the minister. I'm talking about just everyone around the minister. When I would just see manhood, and it's not, it hasn't been bastardized into what they call toxic masculinity and all these other, made up terms, these feminized perceptions of what a man's supposed to do. That's what always attracted me to the nation and a lot of black men. That's why, millions of black men came together for the Million Man March, because every young black man is always looking for some other black man to look up to. And so when the call was made, the brothers showed up. That's when everybody came out for that and responded to that. And so one of the other things I can say I've always admired, and I'd like you to speak on this, is the willingness to build, in the nation. When I sat on I think you were there actually, when we had that council, that meeting in Phoenix, and it was myself and it was a bunch of economists, about 12 of us sitting around a table. You guys should have been there. It was a great meeting, talking about the next 100 years for the black community. And the minister sat there the entire time, which impressed me, because I'm thinking, he's in his 80s. It's his birthday, actually, by the way. And he sat there the whole time. Now I was tired. I needed a nap, and my brother was there. He sat there the whole time, was very attentive the entire time. And I noticed that, when I hear language that speaks of almost like empire building, like, okay, this is our, our minister of agriculture. This is our minister of, of the treasury or economics, whatever the formal titles happen to be. I just love that. I love the idea of true nation building, true institution building. I've never heard anybody from the Nation of Islam complain and say, why won't anybody build a grocery store on that corner? My friends from the Nation of Islam say, well, let's go build a grocery store on that corner. And so what do you have, how would you kind of describe that in terms of that builder's mentality? If we don't see what we want in the world, we create it because we can build it just like everybody else can. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, it's natural, Dr. Boyce. It's organic. You remind me again, and I hate to keep going back to the scriptures, but that's just kind of my orientation of mind. But it reminds me of something that is attributed to Jesus in the New Testament. And he said that the birds have nests and the foxes have holes, but the sons of men have no place to lay their head. And so that was a very stinging indictment on a man or a human being who has no home, when even the birds and the foxes and the beasts of the field have the things that they need to survive. And so you mentioned that we wrote a book entitled Manhood Principles from the Holy Quran. And this is a book that was designed to share publicly some of the principles that we have learned as a part of the Nation of Islam and our men's class known as the Fruit of Islam. Because as you mentioned, the Nation of Islam is attractive because of strength, because of unity, because of this willingness to build whatever we need as a people. And I have a quote, Dr. Boyce, from the famous American writer, Mark Twain. It's on the back cover and it's in the introduction. And Mark Twain was writing a white friend of his, and he had determined in this letter that he was going to pay for the education of, they used the term Negro, but of a young black person. And he was explaining to his friend in the letter, he said, I would not be interested in doing this for a young white student. He said, because the condition of the Negro is our fault. And the quote that I put in the book was, he said, we have ground the manhood out of them. This is what Mark Twain wrote in a letter. He said, we've ground the manhood out of them. And so when I read that, you know, I was bowled over at that kind of an admission from this legendary American icon, this admission that what they did to us, which again, we still really don't know. Most of the time when we bring up the subject of our enslavement, it naturally produces such a mix of emotions that many of us don't rightly know what to do with. So we are just like, man, I don't even want to talk about that. Because when you read and when you hear the stories of what happened to us and what was done to us, really to call it slavery is to mislabel it. It wasn't slavery. Slavery was just owning people for a period of time, and then at the end of that time, they went free. Or even if you owned a man or a woman for life, that ownership never extended to their progeny or their offspring, their sons and their daughters. So the people around the world, they call what was taking place in America with us not slavery. It became known over time as the peculiar institution, because people that had had slavery, people went into slavery because of wars, tribal conflict, there were debtors' prisons. So slavery globally was analogous to like a prison sentence in America. You went in, you served your time, you got out. But it did not enslave your children, your children's children, your children's children's children. So what happened to us, we really still need to learn, because when we find out what happened to us, we will understand why we act and why we behave the way that we do. You know, you're a financial wizard and expert, and I love what you do. And I get the emails, and I keep saying I'm signing up for Dr. Boyce's course, and I am. I want you to know that, because the things that you're bringing to us are much needed. But you know, Dr. Boyce, for instance, there's a phenomenon sometimes in the working class community where, you know, the man get paid on Friday, but by Monday he's broke. You know, that's a phenomenon. And, you know, you could look at that in the Black community and you could condemn it. You could say, you know, we just stupid. Why we do these kinds of things? Until you go into the history of how whenever we would amass money or property, white people, if they developed envy or jealousy, or they just said they didn't want to see us becoming uppity as niggas, they could come and take our wealth and our possessions, and there was nothing to stop them from doing it. Even when we put our money in the freedman's bank, a bank set up for freed slaves, most of the depositors lost their deposits and it was never returned to them. So over time, a philosophy, a maladaptive psychology developed to where we said, you know what? Soon as I get it, I'm gonna get some enjoyment out of it before these crackers come and take it. And over time and over generations, we develop bad habits with money. But if you don't know the historical context and the circumstances that have made us, by and large, an unnatural people, you will not look upon us with the requisite compassion and patience that one should have to a people who have been victimized by traumatic experiences, not just for a day, a week, a month, or a year, but for centuries. So we desperately need to have an education into what made us this way. And I think that that's at the root of why black on black crime is such a problem. Because young black brothers don't see another young black brother that they may be having a beef with as someone that both of them, the only reason that we're here is because our mamas and daddies and our grandmamas and granddaddies escaped the hangman's noose, escaped the lynching mob, survived the Middle Passage, you see. And so if we begin to learn these things, we will have more compassion and patience with one another. And we are taught this in the Nation of Islam. This goes to your point of why we are eager to do this, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us to do for self. Now, we certainly have a ways to go in being what we need to be. But I look at the last 40 years of the minister's work, and if this false label of anti-Semitism, hate teaching, and bigot, if that's removed, then all of those brothers and sisters with resources to put behind the great ideas will feel free to come and support the great ideas. And you'll see even greater building, not just for the little nation, because I have to emphasize, Minister Farrakhan has never made your religious persuasion something of a barrier to working with another brother or sister. You know, he's like, we all are righteous people by nature. Let's come and work together and build something for our people. But Dr. Boyce, when Muammar Gaddafi offered the minister more than $1 billion, he really said, Minister Farrakhan, I will put the wealth of Libya behind the work of the nation. The U.S. government came in and said that Farrakhan could not be in America operating as an operative of a foreign government. So they sabotaged that. Even in the 1980s, black hair care products, that's a big thing. We've been made to feel that we are ugly. We've been made to feel that our blackness is a badge of shame and a curse. So we spend a lot of money on trying to look good because we want to feel good about ourselves. The minister at that time borrowed $5 million from President Muammar Gaddafi. He put it into a black hair care and personal care product line. Mr. George Johnson of Johnson Products had agreed to produce them. But the Jewish leaders who were in control of Mr. Johnson's, I think it was Proline products or Afrosheen, I forget, Johnson's products. Jewish companies were in charge of his distribution, and they threatened Mr. Johnson. If you support this economic initiative that will benefit all of Black America, if you help Louis Farrakhan, we will cease to distribute all of your other product line. And so you'll keep manufacturing, and all of your product will just sit up in warehouses. So out of fear, Mr. Johnson had to come to the minister and say, Minister, I can't help you. The minister even went and put the $5 million loan proceeds in a black bank. And the black banker had to come and tell the minister, Minister, they have told me I can't allow you. Now you're, again, a financial expert, Dr. Boyce. You know that banks a black bank, by definition, if it's a black bank, it's a struggling bank. They don't get $5 million deposits every day. Imagine what a black bank could have done with that $5 million deposit in terms of loaning it out, reasonable rates of interest, helping small businesses, in addition to it being there for the uses of the minister. But they said, Minister, you got to come and get your money. Imagine that. See, so we could do more building. Our building and our willingness to build is tied to this current controversy, because the minister, unlike any other black leader, mobilizes tens and hundreds of thousands of black people. But those who are our adversaries, they fear that we would become economically strong, economically independent. So they sabotage the minister's economic initiative. They interfere when he goes to teach college students, you see. So I don't want to, I know this is not a monologue, and I apologize, but I'm kind of passionate about this thing, Dr. Boyce.
Oh,
But
I respect that, brother. I saw the sabotage up close. When we spoke at University of what was it? Long Beach.
UIC? Oh, Long Beach. That's right. California.
Long Beach, and I remember the second day. I was there a day early. Brother Nuri and I were going to do a panel the next day, and the day before, the minister gave a speech, and they had organized the Black LGBT students to come in and deliberately distract and disrespect the speech. Because he had been invited by the student organization out there that's really, really progressive. I think their brother Salid was a part of it.
Yeah, brother Salih was a part of that. Yes, sir.
And which was very rare. I mean, when I saw that they had invited myself and the minister and Tariq Nasheed and people like that, I said, well, what kind of college campus is this? Most college students are asleep when it comes to real blackness. I mean, really empowered black. They're into this very watered down stuff that's fed to them by the Democratic Party. They don't really kind of understand the trick of the game, because I didn't start really getting the game till I was probably 30 years old. So when I saw these young people that said, no, we want the real leaders in the community that can really show us how to really empower ourselves, and then they understood people like Dr. Claude Anderson, things like that. I was really impressed by that, and because it's very fascinating that through these systems, a lot of our young people get caught in these systems, and you just watch them from the outside, and you see them screaming and whining and protesting and complaining constantly. The system, the school won't let me do this. They said that they called me a name, and my teachers are racist and all this stuff, and I can't get a job, and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, of course you can't get a job because you're black, and this is a white man's economy, and you spend all your family wealth getting this degree from these white folks that's not preparing you to actually take care of yourself. You need to go listen to individuals like the minister and like the brothers from the nation, and Dr. Claude Anderson, just people that can teach you principles that will help you navigate around that system, again, to get out. You don't function in the middle of a dysfunctional situation. You don't try to make sense out of an abusive and dysfunctional marriage. Sometimes you have to divorce. Yeah, you got to divorce your oppressor. But we are in love with white folks. We need their sympathy, and psychologically, we need their validation. We feel that we need their resources. We feel that we need them to tell us that we are worthy, and I've let go of all of that. So I think that it does take, when you talk about black folks out here and that love and respect the minister, and they ain't afraid to say it. Everybody, please say it loud. Say it loud that you respect this man. In fact, I'm gonna say this, brother, and I'll let you get the last word. I argue that if you won't publicly state your support for the minister, if you don't say it, then it don't matter. You are not what you believe. You are what you do. You're not what you would have done. Well, I would. What I'm talking about, those whispering Negroes. I dealt with a lot of whispering Negroes when I was up there battling with when I was working over at Syracuse University, and I was battling with the administration, taking on the giant. It was David versus Goliath. But I said, I got 3 slingshots, and I'm gonna pop all these suckers in your eye. Like, I might die, but we all gonna die today. Like, that was my mindset. And then I had the whispering Negroes that would follow me in my office. Well, I really agree with you, and I would say something, but my kids they got into private school, and I can't afford to lose my job, and ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that, man. I mean, people don't understand that we are at war, and we need soldiers in this war, and I will say that if you're not offended, I'm offended for you, for all these people. All these black folks that have gotten love and support from the minister, these celebrities that call in for advice when nobody else is looking, that will tell you behind closed doors that they support you, but won't say your name in public. That's a shame. It's really a shame. It's really a shame. And you talk about us having a long way to go. A lot of our battle in terms of us having a long way to go is not just in terms of wealth and resources and all of that. It's spiritually and psychologically. It's socially and culturally. You know, if you pull all those things together, if you get the right spirit, the right psychology, the right sociology and culture in your community, then the wealth and the resources come after that. You know, it's like winning an NBA championship. You could be as talented as the best player in the league, but if you ain't right mentally, you'll never win anything. You know, but if you get right mentally, then your success will be a symptom of what you become on the inside. When, you know, the outside reflects what's happening on the inside. So I think that for Black folks, we got to tear ourselves down and rebuild ourselves into people that are able to better understand what's going on with us, to better confront reality, to not be afraid, and to stick together. So I'll say this, and I'm gonna let you get the last word, brother. You know, I had a lot of people say, I've seen it, I appreciate everybody's confidence. Thank you. You know, people say, you know, I love the fact that you stand up for the minister. Thank you. Thank you. And that's bittersweet for me. I appreciate it, but it's bittersweet that people really have to thank me because they see that as so rare. It should not be rare at all, you know. And also, here's the other thing: I'm not doing anything extraordinary by supporting the nation and the minister as they go through this, because this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do. You know, it's like when people congratulate a father for taking care of his kids. You know, a real father does not consider that. He doesn't. That's not. Thank you for the compliment, but I'm supposed to take care of my kids. You know, well, good for you. Look at you. You ain't never been sent to jail. Well, I'm not supposed to be sent to jail. You know, or you graduate from college, you graduate from high school. I'm supposed to get an education. You know, like, don't congratulate me for just doing the basics. You know, so I'll say this, and then I'm gonna be quiet because I love you to finish, brother. But you know, here's what I'm telling you all right now, and I hope you'll hear me on this. I think this is just as a general code of conduct. When you see your ally under attack and your ally goes to war in a righteous fight, it's a righteous fight. You ain't got to pick every battle, but if you think it's righteous, then you jump in the fight. You must jump in the fight. You must provide backup. You have no choice. Stop worrying about losing your job or losing a little bit of money or losing a little bit of status or having a few people mad at you. You know, the reality is that any nation that has ever been strong, any nation that has ever fought for its freedom, any nation that's ever been able to provide its own security has had individuals that said, look, I'm ready to go down for this. Like, what do I need to do? I'm showing up for the battle. And lucky for you, you live in a relatively safe, relatively bloodless society where, you know, for most of us, standing up doesn't mean we're going to die. It just might mean that you might not get you might not get to be in the next big blockbuster movie. You know, you're a Hollywood actor who, you know, maybe you won't be A-list. You'll have to go down to A- and you have to live off the 30 million that you've already made. Or maybe for a politician, it means that you might have a little more trouble getting elected in the next election or whatever. But at some point, you got to do what's right. You know, I really think that if we just committed ourselves to loving ourselves and doing what is right, we could go a long way. So it don't take no courage to stand up on this, because there is no wrong in this. The only wrong is being done by the individuals that are attacking the minister unjustly and unfairly, and it's harming the entire community. So, brother, I'll let you get the last word on that. Thank you for letting me get that out.
No, brother, I always enjoy listening to you, Dr. Boyce, and I'm in agreement with you. And you're right. You know, it's privately a pet peeve of mine, because, you know, in some of the presentations, we do a lecture series called Defending Farrakhan. And in some of those presentations, we literally call the roll. And there's a laundry list of public figures, celebrities, entertainers, that their situation is public. The minister came to their aid and helped them to salvage their careers and their reputations. And yet, in his hour of trial, when he's being falsely accused, when he's being publicly crucified in the media, none of these brothers and sisters ever come forward to say, you know what, hands off Farrakhan. And that's problematic for me. But I guess when I kind of reflect over again, you know, what has happened to us? You know, long before they coined the term Stockholm Syndrome, Black people in America were suffering from an obsession and a love with those that have kidnapped and tormented us. And I don't know if you remember that scene in Django Unchained, Dr. Boyce, but it's an epic scene when Jamie Foxx as Django was whipping the hell out of a slave master, and I think he shot 2 of them. And then in the next couple of seconds, you see the plantation owner coming over to accost Django, and he has an entourage of about 10 or 20 slaves, and they got guns getting ready to kill this other slave that just killed 2 slave masters. And so that kind of scene really, you know, helps to paint the picture of what we're dealing with, you know. Our prominent brothers and sisters, they are afraid. They're really held captive. They are not free. And that's what, again, makes the defense of the minister so important, because his message can free them. They're not even free to defend their own brother. They think that they are free because they make a lot of money. They're picturing their images everywhere, but they really are not free. And you probably could not convince them that they are not free. Some of them maybe behind closed doors would agree with you and I that they are not really free. But to your point, at a certain point, something has to rise in the heart, in the soul of a man or a woman, to say that even if I have to lose this good life that I have, I'm going to stand on principle, because it is better for me, if I have to perish for something, than to have died being a coward to the truth because I feared loss. So I'm in agreement with you, brother, and I pray that there will be more who take that chance, like Snoop. I think there were a few others whose names escape me at this point. But over the 40 years of the rebuilding of the nation, we have captured the testimonies of prominent men and women, people like the rapper Nas and even Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Many people forget that it was during Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearing, when his personal life was being sifted through with a fine-tooth comb and put under a microscope, that they found that he had said that Minister Farrakhan was a man that he had loved and admired for more than a decade. This was during the early 80s, while he was, I think, president of the EEOC, which is odd because the EEOC, their job is to stamp out bigotry in the workplace, and they called the minister a bigot, and he was the president of the EEOC saying he loved and admired the minister. You know, so that tells you how much we should believe or put any stock into this label that the minister is a bigot. And so even people like Clarence Thomas, Bruce Willis, the famous actor of the Die Hard series, he said that if I was a black man, I would be with Farrakhan. And then shortly after that, Abraham Foxman of the ADL, they told Mr. Willis, you'll never work in Hollywood again if you don't retract those statements. So he kind of walked it back. But as they say, his first mind, his organic reaction to the minister was that Farrakhan speaks the truth. And there are many. So it's the job of some of us to help to free our brothers and sisters who really should be helping to free us, because they have the means to do it, but they are really prisoners in Hollywood, in the entertainment industry. They have a great platform that they stand on, but they are not free to speak their mind. And so the minister, I say this as I close, Pulitzer Prize winner William Raspberry, great journalist, before he passed away, he wrote, he said, Minister Farrakhan speaks publicly, but most of us in the black community say and think and feel privately, but we are afraid to say it. And this is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who says this about the minister. So I'm encouraging all to come to the aid and the support of the minister. If you study black history and you look back and you say, man, I would have been with Brother Malcolm, I would have been with Dr. King, I would have not let them do Marcus Garvey like that, then in the modern context, you should stand with Minister Farrakhan. If you're a spiritual man or woman and you look back in scripture and you say, man, I would have been with Prophet Muhammad, I wouldn't have allowed them to crucify Jesus. I would have got on that boat with Noah. Then in the modern context, you should stand and support the minister. The minister is the test for all in our day and time of our so-called love for the great heroes and heroines of the past. You can't say you love the heroes and heroines of the past and you're alive today and you don't stand and support the minister. You don't have to agree with everything the minister said. The minister is not, you know, a dictator or an oligarch to, you know, force people to say, you got to agree with everything I say. The minister loves feedback. In fact, the meeting that you referenced in Phoenix that I was blessed to be a part of, the minister invited economists. They weren't all black. Most of them were not Muslim. One was even Jewish because he wanted honest criticism over an economic initiative that he was getting ready to reintroduce. So he's not a man that is closed-minded to differences of opinion. That's not who Minister Farrakhan is. I'm often embarrassed and humbled when he will say, you know, to us, brothers, I want to say this. What do y'all think about it? Now, this man is my teacher. Anything that I have said today that is of value, he taught it to me. I'm not no one that could offer any, you know, constructive critique of what he would say, because I believe that whatever he wants to say is because God gave it to him to say. But I'm just sharing that as an example of his humility and of his sincerity as a human being. So I want the public to understand you can stand and defend the minister and his right to speak to our people without feeling that you got to be a Muslim or you got to believe in everything that we believe in. The minister taught us many years ago, Dr. Boyce, unity does not necessarily mean uniformity. We can be in unity, but that don't mean we all got to have everything in common. I would dare say that of all of the struggling black groups, we are in agreement over the most important things, the central thing, what we want for our children, that we want our women respected and protected, that we want to have the freedom of speech, that we should have a strong economic reality, that we want to stop seeing our babies go to prison and constantly going to funerals for black on black crime. We want to stop seeing police kill our young people. We agree on these things. Let's unite on that. And a lot of times I found, Dr. Boyce, that a person you might see from afar that you don't agree with, when you get to meet them and dialogue with them, you find out that it was no disagreement at all. It was just a misunderstanding. So, Doc, I thank you. I know you're a busy brother, and I love you and respect you, admire you. You got so many irons in the fire, and my prayers and my support is with you. And I just really appreciate you giving me and you giving the nation so much love and so much time. Now, that's a beautiful queen right there. Who is that?
Taylor. She knocked on the door, so I told her she could come here and say hi.
Of course, of course.
Oh, she wants to show me she got her nails done. So I've got some very important work to do, as you can see here, brother. But,
yes, sir, you do.
Today in the car, actually, it's funny. You know, I always tell everybody about teaching, you know, the children about wealth and things like that. And I was talking to my significant other about, we were on our way to breakfast, and I mentioned something about a franchise. And I said, we're talking about NBA players that go broke, and you know, because they have that paycheck mentality. Some of them that just spend their money up. And I said, but you know, Shaquille O'Neal, he actually owns 10% of all the Five Guys restaurants.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, and I said he owns a lot of those franchises, and I think he owns a bunch of Papa John's now and things like that. And she's in the very back of the car. There's about 8 of us in the car. And she says, oh, franchise. I know what a franchise is because we had studied that on the flashcards. And I said, so what did you say, Tim? Oh, well, she learned that in school. Well, it's actually one of the concepts on our financial flashcards. And so she'll come up, she'll just pop up and spit out these words. I like to talk about those real life examples because the key idea is that we got to train our children to not be infected with the same psychological illnesses that you described earlier. You know, that Stockholm syndrome and all that. In fact, the first 10 minutes that we were eating breakfast, one of them, her birthday was a couple of days ago. She's having a birthday party today. And I said, okay, which companies do you want to own stock in? Pick out some companies. I'm going to buy you some stock. That'll be part of your birthday gift. And I just think little things like that, I want to encourage everybody, little things like that are important, because after we did that, I was able to say to all the kids, all of you all are owners of assets. You all have assets. That's very powerful, you know. So, you know, everybody don't underestimate the little things you teach your children, because that will go a long way in building the future that we're looking to build now. So I invited Tay on the camera. I hope that's okay, brother. I'm
honored. I'm honored. Very honored.
All right, my brother. Well, let me tell everybody, hit the thumbs up button, please. Please give Brother Demetric a digital round of applause. Please hit the thumbs up button, and also please tell Brother Demetric thank you for his time. I was speaking with Brother Demetric Muhammad. He's a student minister in the Nation of Islam. He's part of the research team there. He's also a columnist with The Final Call. Maybe one way you guys can support the Nation is by subscribing to The Final Call.
That's right.
That's a great place to begin. And also, please follow Brother Demetric on every platform, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Give me your word. You're going to please do that. Very, very important. I want to say hello to my friends that are watching from Twitter, which is Dr. Boyce Watkins Womb, and also from Instagram, which is The Real Boyce Watkins. And Goshen, thank you for your donation. I see you just gave us, you put $100 into the pot, and we appreciate that so much. And Goshen says, greetings, Dr. Watkins and Demetric Muhammad. I sincerely appreciate the intelligent discourse on this subject. Yes, that is the goal. The goal is to, I think, brother, that's very important that people get a chance to see two black men being grown men and having intelligent dialogue. You know, because you see too many grown men that, as you mentioned earlier with the Mark Twain quote, you know, we never taught to be men, you know. Right. So I think you and I even having this dialogue, there are some young men out there watching right now who get a chance to see what manhood looks like, just like I got a chance to watch people like Minister Farrakhan, and we got a chance to see that version of manhood, you know. So so I want to say thank you, man, for your excellent work, brother. You are so appreciated. Thank you so much.
Brother, thank you likewise. And my honor, my privilege to be here. Thank you so much, and keep on doing what you do.
All right, brother. Thank you. All right, so you see she's getting rested. She wants to show me her new nails, so I'm about to get on out of here, guys. So, don't forget, also, if you want social media alternatives, here's how you spell blagenough.com. So if you are Blag Enough, feel free to join us at blagenough.com. Also, if you want financial flashcards for your kids or workbooks, you can go to financialworkbooks.com or financialflashcards.com. And last but not least, I'll be in Philadelphia May 19th doing a day-long investment seminar. If you'd like to learn about that, go to drboycephiladelphia.com. That's drboycephiladelphia.com. Use the discount code Philly if you'd like to get half off because you're here and you're for your family, so you can get a discount. So thank you again, brother. You're welcome on here anytime you want to come on. Even if I'm not even using the channel, but man, you send me anything, I will share my platform with the nation. I want to say that very loudly so everybody can hear it. My platform is your platform. That includes yourself and the minister and anybody else that has something to say, because it's working together is how we're going to win these battles. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. Have a great day. See you guys.
Do the same, my brother.
All right. Bye-bye now.